have our class at TTIC, but due to some event going on, we actually changed it to this venue. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Cheang. He used to be the executive director at IEM, all right, with a lot of experiences, and he's also now an adjunct associate professor in Unitec.
They promoted me to adjunct professor.
So he's an
That's
associate
okay.
professor in Unitec, and please feel free to ask him questions, all right, should you have any. Probably it would be good for them to be asking questions at the end of your session, or
No, anytime.
anytime.
Yeah.
So, Cheang mentioned that it's good for you to be asking questions anytime. So feel free to do so. Let's give a hand to Cheang.
Thank you. All right, guys, good afternoon. It's the last day of the week, Friday, and they always say, thank God it's Friday. I hope it's the same for you all. Now, you won't believe it, but my computer just crashed yesterday. Like all great lecturers, we always have plenty of PowerPoints. I also have that. But as luck would have it, for some reason, it decided to go to sleep yesterday. And I was so frustrated, I said, no, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to even rush up some last-minute PowerPoints. So this will be the first time, as I was telling Dr. Lee, that I'm going to give a talk to you guys without a PowerPoint. All right? So I don't know what's going to come and what am I going to talk about. But with a bit of help from you guys, I'm sure I'm going to get this session to be flowing smoothly. So do ask me and interrupt me on anything you'd like to ask. All right? Right, first thing first, let me introduce a bit about myself. As Dr. Lee was mentioning, my last job that I held last year, until last year, was I was Executive Director with the Institution of Engineers Malaysia. All right? And I was there for about 5 years or so. And of course, the job there is basically more of a job relating to representing the interests of professional engineers and also representing the profession. Because the institution is, as you may or may not know, is an institution for all engineers in Malaysia. It's a national institution. And so our primary duty there is to make sure that the interests of engineers are taken care of, and also the interests of the profession. All right? And so a lot of it is dealing with policies and issues like that with the government and with other bodies that is related to engineering. So that was what I was doing for the last 5 years of my life. And before that, I was an engineer like you guys. I'm an electronics engineer. I graduated from University of Western Australia almost 40 years ago. If any one of your father or parents are engineers, they're probably in the same era as me. And I come from the broadcasting industry. Very small industry. I guess most of you probably never even think of it that as an engineering industry. But yes, that's where I come from. I spent 30 years of my life there. All right. And as an introduction to today's talk, I spent only 10 years as an engineer with RTM. In those days, there was only RTM. There was no TV3, NTV7, Astro, and what do you call it nowadays? We have Netflix, and all those channels coming from China and all around the world. Nothing like that. The RTM was the fantastic things. You know, everybody looking at that. Wow, that's the, you know, that's the only place they can look at. So that's where I come from, and I spent 10 years there. All right. Subsequently, I left RTM and I joined the commercial sector. And what I became was a sales engineer. Of course, they gave me a nice title to call me a sales manager, but it makes no difference. All right. And that's why today's talk, I'm calling it, I don't know whether it's been told to you, is called sales engineer, the sales engineer, because very few people I know talk about sales in terms of engineering. And in fact, if you talk to a lot of people out there, sales is a bad word. You guys are students, maybe you know you haven't heard, but a lot of people associate, you know, a sales engineer with being a con man. You know, they think that all salesmen are con men. They don't tell the truth. They're trying to push things to you, can't trust them, and they don't know anything anyway. All right? That's a very popular perception. And I thought it's a very interesting topic for me to talk about because I spent the next 10, 20 years of my life after RTM as a sales engineer, still within broadcasting industry, all right, but doing sales. And I think you guys would be, I hope you'll be interested to know the perspective from a guy who spent 20 years in sales, all right? And I'm not sure whether that negative perception about a sales engineer is correct or not. I will try to share my experience with you. You can ask me questions anytime, but hopefully it would give you a different perspective of what engineering could be for you guys. All right? So that's where I come from, and that's why I'm going to talk about sales engineer compared to the normal types of engineering that you'll be hearing from the regular engineers. They're going to talk to you about consultants. They're going to talk to you about how they manage engineering projects. I will still be doing a bit of that, so don't think that the sales engineer only talks, right? They still have to work, and they still do technical work. That's the interesting part. Yeah, so that's where I come from. So what else is there before I start? Any questions so far? You see, when I have nothing to talk, I will ask you that. Any questions? Because I do not know what I'm going to talk next. What's the broadcasting industry?
No, what's it called, the company which you work for?
I've worked for about, I don't know, 7 or 8 companies in the broadcasting industry. I didn't stick to one. I started with a company called O'Connor's, which today do not do broadcasting anymore because it's too small for them. O'Connor's now is only doing telecommunications. They were the biggest broadcasting company in those days. That means when I left RTM was in the 90s. All right, they were the biggest, and I joined them. And 5 years, I moved on to another company called. Then I left the industry for about 5 years. All right, I went into car park management. Would you believe it? Car park management. Car park management, mind you, is a very interesting industry. You may not know it. All right. Car park, as in you go into the car parks, you pay money.
How do you manage that?
How do I manage that? Hey, car parks has a lot of technology, you know, and you'll be astounded by how, you know, those guys who collect money in the car parks. Those guys are brilliant. They can steal money in ways that I can't even imagine. All right, and some of it is technical. And I've seen it myself, how they manage to bypass the electronic system to siphon money off the system. All right, it is fantastic. And those guys, you call them uneducated, you call them whatever. They sit in the booth, they look dumb, but they are smarter than what you think they are. All right, so these are some of the things I went through. Interesting guys. And the technology is fantastic. Of course, today, now most car parks are auto pay. Right? And one of the main reasons is because there's so much pilferage, as we call it, by the car park boys. It's a totally different experience. I went into that, and I went into industrial electronics for a while as well, for a couple of years, dealing with the semiconductor industry, the electrical appliances industry, and those kind of stuff. But mainly, I was in more of a sales roles in all those things. And after that, I went back into the broadcast industry. All right. Then I joined a company called Jepson and Jason. I think it's still around. Again, they don't do broadcasting anymore. They don't do it anymore. At one time they did. Then they stopped because the industry was too small for them. They are also mainly into telecommunications. They're into chemicals. They're into mechanical stuff, but not electronic broadcast. After that, I went into some other smaller companies, like a company called Digistar. It's a local company. Very short while, I think a year. Where else did I go after that? I think I ended up then in a company called Dagang Technic. Anybody heard of it? No, I don't think these are pretty small companies, because most companies within the broadcast industries are small companies. All right, all the big companies decided they don't want to do it because the industry is too small. So all these are small companies. Small means like 4 or 5 staff usually. That's the kind of, we're not talking about 400 or 500, not even 40 or 50, because the industry is not big enough to sustain a lot of big companies. So that's the kind of things, right? Dagang Technique used to be the agent for barcode projectors. Up until about 10, 15 years ago, barcode projectors was the #1 worldwide. Everybody used barcode, but today, of course, it's taken over by Epson, Samsung, and all those cheap LCD. But in those days, barcode projectors was like, and projectors in those days was very, very expensive. And you need an engineer to set it up, you know. Yeah. But I wasn't dealing with barcode. When I went in that time, even barcode was on. So Dagang Technique was the last one. So essentially, those companies are all what we call system integrators, distributors and system integrators. In other words, what we do is we represent major equipment manufacturers overseas. Very simple, is because broadcasting equipment is very sophisticated. Malaysia don't manufacture any, or rather this region does not manufacture any broadcasting equipment. The system also is very complicated. All right, so we need people to represent them here, okay, to be able to make sure that their products are known and used. And broadcasting, like many other electronic systems, has to be put together as a system. All right, a broadcasting system or even subsystem does not work by just buying a piece of equipment. You need several pieces of equipment to get it to work, and that's where the system integration comes in. All right, you firstly need to know what sort of equipment you need, and then you need to put it together. And of course, you got this, after that you need to service them, right? So that's why you that's what I was doing, or rather, and that's what most of the companies here will be doing. All right, the companies here don't manufacture. All right, all the manufacturing is done overseas, and because broadcasting is a small industry, okay, you can almost say all the manufacturing in the world is either done in the United States, Europe, or Japan. Only China tak ada. In those days, China was worse than Malaysia. All right, China only progressed the last 30 years. You know, I don't know whether you guys know. It's only 30 years ago that they started to move up. All right, before that, they were terrible. They probably could have asked us to go there and help them. Right? China was, but they have moved very, very, very fast. Okay, sometimes too fast that they can't manage. All right, 30 years ago, yeah, they just started 30 years ago. So in those days, all the main broadcast manufacturers come from 3 countries. Yep, and we don't talk. Well, we don't talk to a lot of companies in the United States. Why? Okay, now my time to ask you a question. Why don't we talk to many manufacturers in the United States? Give me a good answer.
Is it because of the distance?
Distance? UK just as far, you know. Currency? Hey, that time British pound more, you know, than the US dollar. Right? Units. What units? Yeah, getting quite close. He's an intelligent guy, right? More specific. Standard, yes, now he's spot on. Good helper, and he's a finishing. So you pass him the ball and he kick into the goal. He gets the name for being the goal scorer, all right? In football, that's the way it is, all right? Now, absolutely right, it's a standards. Because, when I started, it was still the analog television system. And analog in the United States, what do they use? I know it's a bit out of date for you guys. Hey, it's not really out of date. We are still using it in RTM, in the terrestrial broadcast. What system do we use in Malaysia? Our analog terrestrial transmission system. What is it called? Wow. So, well, can't blame you guys lah. You don't even watch RTM, you know. You don't even watch Astro for that matter, I'm sure. It's the PAL system, as they call it, PAL, P-A-L, phase alternating line. And Americans use what is called NTSC, right? Never twice same color, as they call it. I don't know what's the actual name. No, it's actually National Television Society or System Committee. I think it's named after the committee, National Television System Committee or something like that. NTSC, but we always call it never twice same color. All right, that shows how bad the system is. And actually, the system isn't that good. The PAL system is much better. Or anyway, there's a lot of history I can tell you, but I don't want to bore you with history. Anyway, it's an obsolete history now. So PAL and NTSC, all right, absolutely correct. We don't talk to the manufacturers because their products are all designed for NTSC, unless those products are not standards dependent. All right, then we will talk with them. Okay, and of course there are some American companies which try to build products for the PAL market, so to say. Yeah, same with Japan, because Japanese have their own system. Okay, do they have? No, for analog, sorry, they don't have their own system. They follow the American system. So the same situation. So we find that most of the time we are talking to the Europeans, and of course for us we mainly talk to the British, right? So we are very British oriented in terms of broadcasting, and of course a bit of Germany and a bit of other parts of Europe. Oh yeah, I've forgotten, even there's a third system called SECAM that's used by the French, the Russians, all right? And we don't talk to them because nobody used that system anyway besides these two countries. So anyway, coming back, that's what I do, and that's what a lot of broadcasting companies do, right? The manufacturers are all from just a few countries, but it needs to be assembled here, and we provide the service to represent these manufacturers. We represent them to assemble the system to get it to work in the broadcasting station here. All right. So with that, let me talk a little bit then about my role as a guy there, and we call ourselves sales engineers. All right. We call ourselves sales engineers. Why? Because in those days, actually I must bring you back historically, we are the people who deal with the end users, right? The sales engineer is always the guy which deals with the end user, right? Because they always claim that we need some other things besides technical knowledge to be able to convince the end user, which is probably true. Okay. Now I don't know whether you guys have learned any marketing, sales and marketing courses. Have they gone through sales and marketing? I mean, have they done anything? The normal one, the normal one from the textbooks. No, business skills. You know, most important business skill is sales and marketing. You know, diversion again. I just organized a talk by some entrepreneurs out in actually Monash, your neighbor. Some guys asked one of the speaker, and this guy's an entrepreneur. He started a company called, I can't remember his name, but it's something like, it's a mobile payment system. All right, you guys, I'm sure, very familiar with those kind of things. I think it's like PayPal, and not PayPal. PayPal is more of a certification kind of thing, but it's a mobile payment system, and it's adopted. I think Maybank or CIMB uses it, and so on and so forth. So it's quite successful. And some guys was asking him, you know, excuse me, what is the most important thing when you start off your company? And he said it's only two things. You need the guys to either build the product or to sell the product. Everything else not important when you start a company, which is absolutely true. I think he gave a very direct reply, because from my experience it's the same thing. All right. Why do you need a even accountant? You don't need lah. You got no money. What you talk about accountant for? Nothing to account for. All right. You need law. You don't even have any case yet. Like you don't even have a contract. You know, got no job even. You don't need lawyers. You don't need accountants. All right. All those are supporting service. So right at the beginning, all you need is either people to build your product. That means engineers, or you need people to sell the product. All right. and that's technical sales, right? So you only need these two. Absolutely correct. So sales is important, right, from his point of view. Yeah. So so that's where I'm trying to emphasize to you that this is what is most important. Yeah, this is important. All right. So coming back, see, when you divert, sometimes I find it hard to come back where I stopped. Sorry? Come again?
The role as a sales engineer.
Oh, my role as a sales engineer. Okay.
Daily basis.
My role as a sales engineer on a daily basis. Weekly basis. Monthly basis. Yearly basis. Oh, what's it summarized? Can. Anyway, I think let me finish it off by saying what we do in terms of doing the sales role. So I think I'll explain to you how what we do as the broadcasting sales. And actually, I'm talking about broadcasting because it's probably the thing that is I can relate to you directly. But believe me, everything else, a lot of the high technology industries work in the same way. All right, even in mechanical, not too sure about chemical, because chemical, a lot of it is gone into processing, but a lot of mechanical, even civil, there's a lot of work boils down to about representing manufacturers, even local manufacturers, okay, sometimes even local manufacturers today, and then actually building the thing up as a system. All right. So I may be speaking about broadcast because I can give you an in-depth information, having been there all my life. But believe me, a lot of industry out there works on the same principle. I might be talking about a camera in broadcast industry, but it's exactly the same if we are talking about some high-tech mechanical equipment. All right, if you're talking about say solar panels, it's the same thing. Or you're talking about a very high efficiency new type of motor, same thing. All right, you need people to be able to know about the product, and you also need people to know how to put that product to work. All right, because individual products can't do much by being standalone. Yeah. So that's what's happening. Yep, that's what's happening out in this in this market. So perhaps what I think a lot of engineers out there, all right, is doing is those people who are involved in 100% so-called the typical engineer are those who either do design, development, all right, operations and maintenance. Yeah, these are the technical guys. All right, but we still need a person who actually interface with the end user. Right. So that's where the sales engineer comes in. And as I mentioned there, even from an entrepreneur, and also if you are even an established company, you will need that interface between, all right, the technical people and the end user. That's the important point. That's where the sales engineer comes in. All right. And why is it important to have this person? All right. So I'm now trying to put forward the thing is that is important. It's because when you are selling a technical product, you are not selling soap powder. Okay. It is not something where, but having said that, even soap powder is not entirely non-technical. Today, even a simple product you buy can be very technical. And actually, if you want to be an informed consumer, there's a lot of things you need to know about it. All right? Because gone are the days where people, firstly, I think it's two sides. Number one is people are not very discerning. That means they don't bother too much what they buy and they use. But today, I think the consumer is different. People want to know, to the extent that now people want to know about sustainability, where this product comes from. I don't know whether you guys do that, but I know some people locally do that, and certainly it's in the developed countries very common. People want to know, right, whether this chicken is here I think they have range free or whether it's kept in cage. All right, whether your things like organic farms, people want to know. All right, and they want it to be certified to know that I'm buying a product which is sustainable, I'm buying a product which is healthy, and so on and so forth. All right, so this is what consumers nowadays want. All right, but more so in the technical discipline, because any product you have got out there, especially if it's a technical kind of thing, you do need a fair amount of technical knowledge. All right, so you can't get any Tom, Dick, and Harry. You can't get an insurance salesman and go and sell technical product. It does not really work. All right, because then what are you going to talk about? Yeah. Of course, there's always this big idea about sales guys getting involved with all kinds of things except technical stuff. Frankly speaking, it is true. I mean, you want to have an honest opinion. I mean, anytime you go into sales, you got to take your client out, make sure he gets fat, being happy so that you can look at your product. Human nature, any kind of sales, right? Don't blame the sales engineer, blame the customer, because that's what he wants. Yeah? I mean, I'm coming from a sales engineer because I've done that before, okay? But don't send me to MSCC, right? True, it's the customer. It's a two-way thing. Corruption is two-way. All right? It's not one way. Don't blame the guy who's just giving. If you are, it's also the guy who's taking it, both ways. All right? Sometimes they arrest people for just taking. All right? But why don't you arrest the person who gives? All right? Same the other way around. So in our case, the sales engineer always got a bad reputation. They're always giving things away. They are always, trying to convince people using not so ethical ways to get the sales done. Honestly, it's true. All right, but then again, as I said, much of the blame also depends on the user, the end user. Why does he want to accept it? And in the real case, I can tell you a lot of people even ask for it. All right, that is the whole scenario here. I shouldn't be talking about this in actually a regular class, especially when it's recorded. Oh dear, I forgot about that. Okay, but I think I'm old enough, so. I can't be sacked for a job anymore because I've already sacked myself. So I think I'm safe. Yeah, I think I'm safe. Yeah.
How did you bridge the gap between technical to the end user?
How do you bridge that gap? Basically through engineering. All right. I mean, it's not. That's why I say the sales engineer's role is not trivial. Okay, now I bring you to the next point. Okay, and my next point is that the sales engineer, contrary to a lot of what people believe, is a very technically oriented job. My case, okay, this is first-hand experience. Towards the end of my career, of course, because things develop. Do you know, as a sales engineer, I got to attend training almost with every company that I represent every year. Not locally, but overseas in the headquarters. And some of the training that I get there is much better than any of what the engineers will ever get, or rather they don't get, all right, because they are not supposed to go and get those information. Companies that I represent, for example, the best one I had was almost like my last year or second last year before I left the industry and joined IEM was I went to Quantel. Anybody heard of this company called Quantel? Probably not. Like, it's a very specialized broadcasting equipment. They're dealing with high-end graphics used in some of your Star Wars and all those kind of stuff. It's called Quantel. They deal with very high-end graphics, #1 in the world. We were representing them here, and actually TV3 uses a lot of Quantel in their newsroom system. All right. So I went there, and mind you, it's a 1-week course I have to attend, and okay, that's sort of a test. That's for a sales engineer. All right. And I get into the details, and explanation was very good as to how the system works, because they want you to know how their machine works, because if you don't know, how are you going to explain to your customers how it works and what it can be used for? So I have to go for technical training, all right? And the extra things I can tell you I can get, which very few people get, all right? Certainly the engineers and the end users in Astro, in TV3 or what, they don't get the chance to listen to that, all right? Because when they tell you what's good, they also tell you what's bad lah. So obviously it can't be open to, of course they've got special course for engineers from RTM. They send them on a special course where they only listen to all the good things, all right? It's not cheating. It's just that they're not telling you the bad things, that's all, right? They're not telling you the wrong things, all right? And also we look at all the products in the market because we have to know competitors. It's just like you're buying a car. Can you imagine Toyota sends you to the head office and tell you, this is what's so good about Toyota, but this is not so good about Nissan, Hyundai, Ford. So we get to know a lot of things. All right, it is fantastic. My engineer, I've got engineer under me, to do project, to do maintenance. They also go for course, but their course is a bit boring lah. They have to learn how to fix a circuit board, all right, and troubleshoot all those things. I'm not discouraging you guys from doing that. He is doing a very important job, very, very important. But what I'm saying is that the sales engineer is also doing an important job. He's not a guy who just goes around and, hey, let's go for dinner, or let's go to karaoke, Hey, that one very bad lah, that one. Oh, money, money, money. No. So it is not. What I'm trying to say is that the sales engineer has got a specific role in the overall, supply chain, as they call it. Yeah, in a whole supply chain, the sales engineer has got a role. All right. Now, I know it's a very controversial topic I'm talking about because every time you talk to an engineer, he will come from the direction either as a consultant, he'll telling you all the great things, how fair they are, how accurate they are doing the design. I'm sure they do that, all right? Or even a guy who is in maintenance or whatever it is, all right? But I've never heard a guy who says, hey, sales engineer's job is pretty good, and I think it is because there's a lot of technology inside you have to know. And that's the first part about representing the equipment. Then you're going to put it together. How are you going to put it together? You think it's an easy job? All right? It's not. And as a sales engineer, you are the guy who's going to propose. All right? You are going to propose to a customer what you're going to do. Of course, you can't do it alone. All right? Certainly, you can't do it alone if you're doing it for anything high technology. And you have to get other people to help you. But normally, the sales guy is the person who takes the lead because he's going to the guy who's going to present it to the customer. He's going to talk with the customer. All right? And therefore, he needs to know and he has to need to take the lead in getting all his resources together. Okay. Another example, towards the last few years, I was involved in doing a tender bid. All right? And as you probably know, in the industry, all right, compared to what we call the business market or the industrial market compared to the consumer market, which is different, all right, is that we normally buy and sell through formally, in other words, through a tender process or through a quotation process. But for big projects, it's always tender. In other words, they have to put up documents, all right, and we have to, with specifications, and we have to submit our proposal based on what has been specified. Right? That is the usual way we do so-called business for anything in the engineering area. Yep. And I remember the last big bid I did was a huge. I think it's worth about 60 million. All right. For broadcasting, it's big. You talk to the civil engineer, 60 million, oh, that's minor works. True. Because you're talking about 6 billion or 600 million. Oh, those are large projects. And for broadcasting, 60 million is a big project because, it's a small industry. So 60 million is huge, and it's about the digitized, right, converting the entire terrestrial broadcast. In other words, those RTM, TV3, and TV7 into digital transmission system. So I put up a project, all right. So that kind of a project where I was taking the lead on behalf of my company, representing a whole bunch of companies, it took several months to compile. And expertise were drawn from UK. I can't even remember how many companies. Easily about 5, 6, or 7 companies. all right? So they have got to feed the input to me. And actually, because the proposal was so big, we can't put in the system together ourselves even. And then we need a guy who does systems, all right? So I remember the systems guy was from a guy from the United Kingdom. We have got companies, as I said, Quanta is one of our principals. We got him also from the UK. We got a satellite because, was it satellite? No, it's a terrestrial. So transmitter manufacturer is Roche and Schwarz from Germany. Anybody heard of Roche and Schwarz? They are very big transmitter manufacturer. They've got actually a big office out there in Glenmarie. They do a lot of work for not just broadcasting but for telecoms as well. Roy and Schwarz, we have got a company which deals with conditional access. We've got companies that deal with other bits and pieces I can't remember. But one of the processes I was trying to tell you is that how we do it is that we need to do an international teleconferencing with all the partners on a regular basis to get all the things together. All right? And we talk engineering. We don't talk about lunch and dinner and how much money we're going to give to the customer. All right? So you do need to know a lot of technical things. So you bring that expertise together. We do talk engineering. All right? So a sales engineer don't just talk about how to entertain the customer. All right. It appears to be so. You know why? Well, I'm talking a lot of things which is really on ground level. All right. Not textbook. You won't find any of these. All right. None of them will talk about these sort of things. But we know it's like that. All right. Point number one. All salespeople, including sales engineers, will want to make the customer, or whatever we call it, the end user, feel that they are very important and intelligent. Anywhere, not just in my industry, any industry. All right, they will always want to feel. Why? Because it's a psychology. You see, yeah, customer, he's the guy who's paying. He wants to feel good. All right, so you have to make him look good, feel good. How do you do that? And a very common way is a sales engineer. It's not by purpose, it's very obvious. You have to look dumb to the end user. All right? Because the end user says, I'm very intelligent. All right? I know what I'm doing. You don't have to tell the end user, hey, you're talking rubbish. This thing doesn't work. Even if it doesn't work, says, yes, you're good. This works. But you just do it the other way around and then go to him. But I think this is slightly better. I think there's I think you miss it. I think you know, but you miss this point. This is the way we cope with that, right? Now, that's why they always feel that the sales engineer don't know anything technical, because that's what all sales guys will want to do when they go out there. They want to project the opinion like they are not very smart, because they don't want to make the end user, right, look stupid. And I can tell you a lot of end users, including their engineers themselves, a lot of them aren't as smart. I won't say they're all stupid. They are just no different from a sales guy. They're no different. All right? They appear, you see, you must see the context. For example, in my case, most of the customers are people who work, let's say, in a broadcasting station. They don't have very much access to the technology. All right? And they don't do so many projects as well. All right? But of course, they hold senior positions. Oh, I'm the director of engineering. I'm the chief engineer. All right? But that's what they are. All right? They don't really know a lot of the detail, and they don't really actually get involved in the technology. They don't go for training like what we did. Yeah? But they are the people who specify what they want. And how do they know? They will get all the suppliers to come anyway. Hey, what can your product do? What can your product do? Of course, the smart ones, and that includes consultants. Right? A lot of consultants do that, especially in the mechanical and the electrical side. As a consultant, especially, not many people going to offer you training. If they offer you training, they were telling you all the good things about their product. That's all. Right? That's the real scenario. So, of course, they will know something. All right? I'm not saying that everybody else doesn't know anything. But what my point is that the sales engineer is an equal partner in this whole thing. But the way our business world works, since it's a business skills job, the way the business world works is such that, all right, the sales guy needs to pretend that he is not as smart as the guy simply because that's the way the business world works. You are the guy who's got the money, you pay for it, therefore you have to look smarter than me. It's okay, because at the end of the day, I also make my share of the money, and that's good enough. I have to sacrifice my ego to look myself stupid. And that is why it happens everywhere, it happens all the time, and that's why the impression to me is that the sales engineer is no good. And I've done that many times. All right? I go for another meeting, actually, in fact, I can quote you, it's in Puncak Niaga for the new UITM campus. You find that the consultants will be calling, they dare not go for a meeting, with all their contractors and suppliers behind them, because any question that the client asks them, they won't know. They will just look at the back. They will look at the back. All right? Because they only know certain things only. All right? The details, they wouldn't have the kind of technology, and we are there to supply them that detailed information. Of course, we will pretend that we are also not very smart. Then we pretend to whisper to the guy, hey, no, this, I think this way will work. Then the fellow will be smart, he says, oh yeah, that's the way it will work. Yeah. That's the way the world goes round, right? So that's it. This is what sales engineers do. That's their role, and they have their place in the overall scheme of things. And frankly speaking, if any one of you guys, and of course it's not for everybody, right? I just mentioned to you the sales guy, and this is the psychology of it. He needs to eat his ego. Positive and negative. Negative in the sense that sometimes it's very difficult. A lot of people can't take it. All right? Especially a lot of engineers, they say, I'm right. Why should I say I'm wrong? Right? Very common. Of course, the good thing is that you tend to then look at human beings and their failures as something positive. You are learning something. All right? You understand people better. Okay? And believe me, I've seen a lot of people. And what you see is not what you get sometimes. You'll be surprised. That's one lesson I learned. Something interesting. Okay? That's sales. All right? So if I won't go into a lot more. I mean, I thought this is a quick overview, something very practical, down to earth. As I said, not for everybody. There are some people who just likes to work on technical stuff. All right, nothing wrong with that. Don't get the wrong idea to say that, hey, the guy who works on technical stuff is not very smart, or is not going places, or that's not important. No. Everybody has got his own place. All right, technical work is not easy. In fact, the very fact that I see some of my engineers, of course, after I became an engineer, when I go up a bit up, my God, I mean, you spend hours and hours looking at the damn stupid board, and you can't solve the problem. It's not an easy task. Yeah, so they have their role. Okay. Yep, sir.
Considered a successful sales engineer. I mean, what could you aim for to get?
Good question, because that's where I'm going to go next. Again, the business scenario is such that the guy who takes the lead in interfacing with the customer normally moves a bit further and faster than the guy who sits in the background, who is not known, all right, to be doing a more prominent role. All right. Yes, I said the sales engineers has to swallow a lot of ego. Sometimes when he goes out and interface with customers, it's not an easy job. Yeah, but at the end of the day, all right, he knows how to. Learns an extra skill of how to handle people. Right. Number two, being in sales, he has to know the business and other aspects of engineering. All right. Exactly like what you guys are learning now. You need to have the business skills. Because when you do a proposal, it's not just engineering, all right? It has to make sense that the engineering, because as a sales engineer, when you do any proposal, it has to be done in the context of what the customer wants. All right. Of course, besides those funny things that goes on, that's what customers want at the individual level, and that's illegal or unethical. There are also other valid things, like if it's a company, they need to have a business sense. That means it must be low price, right? Things like easy maintenance, okay? Things like does it comply with the legal requirements, all right? Does it need extremely well-trained manpower, or general manpower is sufficient? So these are factors that the sales engineer will get involved. The purely technical engineer will not need to, because they need to focus all their attention on all the, they're more focused on just purely the technology, all right? So that guy who is doing sales needs to have a broader picture. And because of that, normally, and because they are so more exposed to the end user, so they normally has got a slightly, I won't say completely less, slightly better chance of moving up faster and a bit further. So you'll find that a lot of companies, the sales guy, all right, becomes the top man, all right, not the guy who is in production. See, I'm painting a very bad picture actually. Normally, I must always want to qualify, because some guy who is doing engineering will come and knock me on my head and saying, you know, why are you saying that's such a lousy job? No. The message I want to get across here, the sales engineer has got a role, all right? It's not all that sleazy kind of job. It's very technical. It's quite rewarding. In fact, it's quite often rewarding, all right? But it is no less, and I would like also to add no more, than if you are purely an engineer. So the prospects are there. But now, having said that, I'd like to move on. I'd like to move on to say that the scenario has changed. Things are changing very fast, okay? Today, the business environment has changed drastically. Can anybody like to speculate what you think I'm going to talk about next? Talking about the business environment. I'm talking about sales. Now I'm talking about what's happening now. What has changed from what I've been talking about so far? Somebody, give it a try. Entrepreneurship. Now I'm not talking along that line. Yes, I know there's a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship, which is, of course, there's a reason for that, but it's not the focus of what I'm trying to get at. I'm looking at something else. In terms of the business, how people do business. How people do business. How do you guys do business? How do you guys buy and sell these days?
Online.
Precisely. All right, I thought you guys are very much on that. All right, online. Now, we used to have, you know, they call it at one time, 10 years ago, new terms. We call it B2C. On those days, everybody was selling consumer because nobody talks about. Then they say B2B. Now I heard it's O to O. So I asking my daughter, hey, what is O to O? 0 to 0, kosong. You guys know what O to O, isn't it? My God, my daughters are better than you all. She's not even, one of them is in marketing, that's why. I say, you're behind time. O to O. What I was told is online to offline. Online to offline. All right? Ask your marketing guru or tell us what is O to O. Now you can even Google. I'm quite sure it's there now. I've seen it so many times. It's quite recent I think the last few years, but it's very real. Okay. Now they've come up with O to O, which is online to offline, which means that you buy things online, you deliver it offline. All right. Uber, all these things are O to O. Right. You order a taxi online, you get it, real thing. All right. Can you get it on Google? Is it there? Yes. Is it so? I'm not talking rubbish. Not my own invention. Not my own invention. So online to offline. No, whole thing is today's business is done on the internet. Now that has drastic impact on how business is done. Very drastic, and therefore I can almost say that the role of the sales engineer now again is further diminished. Unfortunately, all right, it's going to be diminished because, and this is one of the most significant effects that's taken place, because even when I was in my last years in the engineering industry in sales, I was experiencing this. Now, what is the impact of internet marketing or online marketing or online business? What is the main impact? The main impact is that the thing becomes very flat. In other words, a customer can go directly to a manufacturer halfway around the world. Remember what I said? We used to say that in the broadcast industry, when we are doing sales, what is the purpose of us doing sales? Because we want to represent a manufacturer somewhere in Japan, United States, the UK, because they are so far away. So they need people here to help them to explain their products, how to use their products, and how to install their products. But today that scenario is disappearing, all right? Because the customer can actually access the experts in the United Kingdom, in the United States, and Japan anytime, all right? It's just, I wouldn't say phone call, that's out of date. It's just an email away or a WhatsApp away or Skype away, you know. So that information, you don't need people to explain it locally. So the world has become flat. Right? That's another term, I think, in the business or in anything. They say the world is becoming flat. That's exactly what it means, because people are being connected directly. All right? You don't have to go through many levels. So where do you need so many people to come and explain things to you, to do things for you? All right? Because then the end user now has got direct access. And therefore online business is becoming reality. It does affect a lot of jobs, right? And therefore, believe me, the sales engineer will still be around, all right? But their role now becomes even more technical, all right? Becomes even more technical, right? Their role will become more technical because no longer can you get away with just trying to be the buffer between you, the end user, and the manufacturer. Because now that guy, when I was in my in many years towards the end, all right, you find that the customers now today can contact the manufacturer. All right, they can contact the manufacturer, they can get information from the manufacturer, and they can actually get advice from the manufacturer. And today, compared to the old days, you don't need to wait, right? You don't need to wait. In those old days, hey, can you give me a proposal? The fellow will take a long time, and because it's such a big proposal, you know, they have to send it, you know, by hard copy, you know, but it's too thick to fax. Definitely cannot fax. You know what the fax is anyway? You know, a fax is still very much in use, you know. I think the Japanese use it a lot. Why? Why? Why does the Japanese use it? I still think, I mean, maybe the last few years, I'm not sure. Why do you think but at least until 5 years ago, I know the Japanese use a lot. Why? Security. No lah. No lah. You think your fax is very safe? Huh?
Exercise? Pretty instant.
Of exercise.
Kind of instant.
No, actually it can't be relevant anymore. I'm also out of date. No, fax was very popular with Japanese because they can write their Japanese kanji, all right, much faster than they can, I think, type. But I think now it is overtaken, all right. In those days, I think I'm talking about 5. You see, things change very fast today. I'm talking easily about 5, well, time flies, maybe 10 years ago. The Japanese use fax a lot because at that time, even though they have got email already, they find it, I think, a bit slow, all right? So, but now, and that's why they prefer to write it on a fax and then just send it across, or they sketch little diagram, send it across. But today, of course, it's changed. I think they are able to type or even message in characters, because Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans face the same problem, all right? The characters was difficult, but I think it's very easy now, all right? They've got automatic translators using, I don't know, unfortunately, I don't come from, I don't have a Chinese background even, so, but I think it can be listened. Even, for example, Arabic or whatever, I think there's a lot of translation program which allows you to type or to key in, right, messages very easily. So I think that's probably no more relevant, yeah. So online marketing is very real, okay? So I do not know what's going to happen, but I can see that it's, from the business point of view, it's going to make a major impact on everything, that how you're going to do business. The world, of course, is very flat now. People are buying from Alibaba, which is a Chinese company. It's like nobody's business. I mean, it's like just, what's a big deal? And I can just buy something there. And there's so many business actually arising out of online. Right? Everything is online now. And that would include engineering work. All right. For example, I just know, what's the name of the company? Purely engineering. I know one company, they have got offices in the UK and Malaysia. Can't remember the name of the company. Electrical engineering company. All right. So they do design. This is purely engineering, nothing even to do with sales, engineering. What they do is, why did they do that? Both are design office. In fact, the one in Malaysia is doing the design for the electrification part of our North-South railway system. All right, British company. Very simple. They have got a design team there, design in the UK. They design things here in Malaysia, and of course nowadays they use very sophisticated computer software. I'm not sure whether it's cloud-based, but even if it's not, they can easily send it to the UK. When we finish our job here at 5 o'clock, UK starts work at 5. They start work at 8 o'clock in the UK. So the design work is 24 hours, for example. All right. So it can be done much faster. So it's a 24-hour design process. All right. And by the time those British finish the design or whatever they do here, the Malaysians will come in the morning and they will see what their British counterparts has done. So this is one example of how the internet is shaping up even engineering work. Of course, this is not very new. For a lot of advanced industries like aircraft manufacturing, they've been doing it a long time, all right, because they are very advanced. Of course, if you manufacture aeroplanes, and because aeroplanes, they are ready for a long time, their production and their design has been spread out worldwide for many years anyway. So they need this collaboration, okay? So online marketing, online business, in fact, online everything, okay? Yep, so I think that's enough from me, because anything more, I think you all will all go to sleep. So I'm opening it up for discussion, question and answers, because anything more as well, I probably get groggy myself. That's one thing good about PowerPoints, all right? Because it is like a nice thing that reminds you, oh, I got to talk about that topic. I got to talk about another topic, all right? But then, like every good thing, it always has got its limitations, because some people claim that PowerPoint are becoming very boring. Yeah, I've heard that. They say it's like everybody give a talk, gives a similar kind of thing. Sometimes the diagrams also looks like they're all similar. And to some extent, are true, because I am doing a short course in and even the students, when they do a presentation, they come out. How come the diagrams look all so similar? They come out with the same thing. That is copy and paste lah. But then they are smart. It's not 100% the same. It's slightly different, little bit different. But you look at the way it's been drawn, it looks similar lah. Anyway, I guess it's the good and the bad part of it lah. All right. But anyway, I think that's just a brief overview about what the sales engineer do. All right. Does it deserve the kind of bad reputation it has? Certainly because I was in it for 20 years, I don't think it does. I'm just trying to say it has a role. It has a role in the whole engineering ecosystem. All right, like any other person, no better, right? Don't get me wrong, but no less than what other engineers will be doing. Right? It's just that they've got different roles to play. Yep. And the second take is, right? It's changing. The scenario is changing. How, and it will change into. That's what you guys will find out. It's not for me. My time is over. All right. But it is changing. You have to adapt to it. What roles are important? All right. So for all I know, I mean, the engineer, when you guys come out, you probably be on the internet all the time. All right. You're probably talking to your customers on the internet, so on and so forth. All right. And all your proposals are software, which is probably true. In fact, I know a lot of companies are now instituting what is tendering purely by electronic. That means you don't need to put up a pile of documents. As I said, the last tender I thought, we have boxes of documents that are going to ship to the office. All right. So I'm quite sure in the future it's like press a button, it's all gone. Oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong button, wrong document sent. But cannot recall, can recall. Cannot recall. Something, I think somebody has invented something called recall. Send it back. Yeah. So that's roughly the whole scenario. So anybody would like to ask anything, I will see whether I can assist you. Been around a long time.
Do you think for the development of business now, the modern world now, they should let go of the role of marketing engineer and make way for the internet? Or do you think that the marketing engineer does actually still have a place in developing?
I think there is still a place for sales and marketing in engineering and anywhere else. Some of the roles might be changed, obviously, because, as I said, the internet has made the business environment flat. In other words, a lot of the previous roles no more relevant. But I think the relevant part is still that the sales engineer will probably needs to be more of an application engineer. In other words, your customer or your end user will still require somebody, all right, to
talk to.
inform them, to talk them and inform them, and advise them what certain products or systems can and cannot do, all right. And even though you can get that answer on the internet directly from the manufacturer, there will still be some need for, because as you know, it's online to offline. At the end of the day, you still need to have some offline delivery. In other words, you still need to deliver a physical working product at the end of the day. And you can't just do it on the internet. You cannot send a piece of equipment down the internet and have it installed. Or maybe you can in the future.
Ambitious.
How would this affect us as human beings? I mean, just your personal opinion. As business becomes more human interactive.
I think you're wrong. Business and everything else is going to be less human interactive. Less and less human interactive. You all must have heard of things called Internet of Things, right? What is the Internet of Things? It's to take away the human factor, all right? It's just to take away the human factor because humans are the weakest link today, all right? So they want everything to run on machine. That's why Internet of Things works by machine-to-machine communication. That is the crux technology. They want machines to talk to machines. They don't want the human being to make any decisions in between and mess up the whole thing. That's what they say humans are doing. And that's why this whole trend at the moment is to get rid of humans, and therefore it's going to be lesser and lesser human interaction in the future world of things. All right? I'm not saying whether it's good, whether it's bad, but certainly Internet of Things is a direction, is in that direction. It's to get rid of the human being. All right. That's why you have a driverless car. Why? the driver is the weakest link. That's the guy who causes all the accidents. All right. So now you have a driverless car. All right. You jump into the car. It takes you from point A to point B. They don't need you. All right. They don't need you. They don't want you. In fact, whether it's a question of need to. All right. I was told that other things is like say security. All right. The CCTV nowadays they can very intelligent. They can tell things. All right. They communicate straight to things and straight to things and straight to things and then activate certain things, all without needing you to do. So at the end of the day, you might have got a prisoner in your house and say, hey, how come? I got a thief inside my house. Oh, it's already, he cannot leave. Police have been informed. Oh, it's already been caught. They don't need you. All right? And then somebody will inform you, hey, a thief went into your house. The police came and he has already caught him and put in the jail. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, too bad. But everything is being done. That is Internet of Things. All right? It's all about machine-to-machine communication. And why they don't want humans. So in answer to your question, I think it is not what you think about more human interaction. It is going to be less human interaction. All right, you can see it even in an online business. All right, today you give a call, you don't hear an operator. You want English, press 1. You want customer service, press 2. And sometimes even the solution comes as a message. Please be informed that you have an interruption in your area. It will take about 8 hours. This came from TM just last week. And mind you, the stupid, this is SMS. You got a service interruption in your area. We expect that the thing will be restored on the 8th of November. That was 8th of October. I say, my God, 1 month. So when I call up, he said, oh, that is our standard message. Luckily, I said, so the next day I got my service back. But this is a very low-end form of Internet of Things, all right? Bypassing the human beings. Yeah, that's my take on it. Ask your lecturers, maybe they are more advanced than me. I bluff a little bit. I'm still a salesman. Any more profound questions from you all on anything that I could be of assistance since I was around a long time? And I'm phasing out of this world and letting you young guys take it on to the next level. Anything? If not, can I call it a day? Okay, thank you very much guys for listening. I hope it has been useful. And since I understand that you are all like towards your 3rd year or 4th year, I wish you all the best. All right. Hope that I might bump into one of you again one day.